for this, it's about to begin. Yeah, I got the phone and I'm feeling that hype. Yeah, ask me why, now I'm coming alive. Embrace yourself, better strip yourself and get ready for this, it's about to begin. I'm hyped, I'm hyped, I'm coming alive, I'm hyped. My palms are sweating cause I've been waiting. I'm so excited cause the time is now, right here and now. Gonna make you say wow. All wrapped up in anticipation. My palms are sweating cause I've been waiting. I'm so excited cause the time is now, right here and now. Gonna make you say wow. I'm hyped, I'm coming alive, I'm hyped.
What's up guys, welcome to another video. Monday today. Deadlifts worked up to 247.5 kilo for a double, moved really well, and I think one of the contributing factors for it moving so well was the fact that I've been dosed up on caffeine today, which has got me thinking, how much caffeine do I actually have on average in a day? Obviously on training days that's going to be more, but I've been looking at how much caffeine is in my pre-workout and how much is in coffee, and it got me thinking, am I having too much caffeine? So on a gym day I would generally have some pre-workout. If it's a day where I'm going to be hitting a personal best or going quite heavy, then I normally have 2 scoops, but on the other days I normally have 1. But in 2 scoops of this prolific pre-workout there are 320 milligrams of caffeine, which I think is slightly on the higher end of pre-workouts. And I've obviously had a coffee today because I generally have 1 or 2 coffees every single day, and in this case I've had 2 coffees, and the coffee that I actually have is quite a strong coffee, and I do put quite a lot in the actual cafetiere. So I've kind of worked out how much caffeine there is in coffee, and I think the sort of higher end is around about 150 milligrams to 200 milligrams per cup, which means if I round it up to about, let's say 150 milligrams, that's a little bit conservative. That means I've had 300 milligrams in caffeine just in coffee, and then 320 milligrams in pre-workout, meaning I've had 620 milligrams just today. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to calculate how much caffeine I actually have throughout the week, and kind of have a look at things like my sleep and just how it actually makes me feel, and try and get an average of how much I have actually every single day. So I think just talking about how much caffeine I have in a week probably isn't a very interesting video, so I'm going to throw some facts out there as well and do a little bit of research, and that would be things like whether caffeine is actually good for us or not, and what it actually does from a sort of neurological point of view. So I'll do my research and then I'll get back to you on that. Right, day 2 of Diary of a Caffeinated Powerlifter. I've only had 1 coffee today, which puts me at around 150 milligrams, if I'm saying that 150 milligrams is pretty much my dosage per coffee. And I'm probably going to stay on that because I'm not training tonight, but also I'm really conscious that I want to have a good night's sleep tonight, because tomorrow I've got my first of 2 neuro exams for my physio degree, and I'm very keen to get a good night's sleep. And I have found that the more caffeine I have, generally it is harder to get to sleep. So last night I didn't get to sleep probably until about 12:30, when normally I get into bed around 10:30. So I was sort of staying up a little bit later than I wanted to, and I really do put that down to the caffeine. So yeah, I'm gonna stick with the 1 coffee today. So my grand total is going to be 150 milligrams today. I am, however, going to have quite a lot of sugar tonight because it is pancake day, and I'm definitely going to make up for the lack of caffeine with sugar.
Almost every night when that moon is big and bright, it's a supernatural delight. Everybody's dancing in the moonlight, dancing in the moonlight. Everybody's feeling warm and bright. It's such a fine natural sight. Everybody's dancing in the moonlight, dancing in the moonlight. Everybody's feeling warm and bright. It's such a fine natural sight. Everybody's dancing in the moonlight.
Animal. Oh, you want pig.
That'll do. Thank you very much, thank you, thank you. So I know I said I wasn't going to have another coffee. Decaf, that's what decaf's for. So yeah, I am limiting my caffeine for the rest of the evening, but I couldn't help myself having some what are you laughing at?
It's so funny you're getting closer and closer to drinking and still speaking.
Okay, so I know I said that I wasn't going to have another coffee and I wasn't going to have any more caffeine. That's why you have decaf. Cheers, mate. Okay, so I said that it would be a bit of a boring video if I just said how much caffeine I consume in a week. So here's some quick-fire facts about caffeine. It's the 4th most widely used drug in the world. The 3 most popular drinks in the world all contain caffeine. Coffee, tea and cola. It works by blocking, inhibiting brain juice and increasing dopamine. What brain juice does it actually inhibit? According to legend, we owe a great debt to an Ethiopian goat herder named Khalid, or a Yemen dervish named Omar.
Does it help you to read loudly?
Caffeine takes 20 to 30 minutes to go into effect. It's not just in coffee.
To go into effect?
That's what this says.
To take effect.
Caffeine takes 20 to 30 minutes to take effect. You're doing a great job, keep it up.
I'm leaning against my boob. Why are you speaking like this?
Because caffeine facts. It is a good one. Caffeine has a taste. Anyone else know that? So those pancakes last night were absolutely delicious, but they definitely gave me a big sugar high. But I still did manage to stick to the 150 milligrams of caffeine last night, and my sleep last night was so much better than on Monday. And it's just as well because I had my exam today, my neuropractical exam, which I passed, which I'm really happy with. Definitely helped by the 2 coffees that I had first thing in the morning. So I'm already up to around 300 milligrams of caffeine today, and because it's Wednesday, it is another gym session. I'm heading in to do some squats, and I am starting to flag a little bit now just because I have had a full day of lectures as well as the exam. So mentally I am starting to fatigue a little bit, so I'm thinking I'm going to have 1 scoop of pre-workout today as well. Alright, back from the gym, absolutely shattered, not gonna lie, it's been a very long day. Wrapping up my caffeine content for today, I've had a little think about the coffees that I had while I was at uni, and I'm pretty sure they weren't as strong as the ones that I normally make myself, so I'm gonna round them down to 100 milligrams each, plus the 1 scoop of pre-workout. That puts my total for today at, quick maths, 360, if my maths is correct. So 360 milligrams today. Obviously I'm going to monitor how I sort of sleep tonight and that sort of thing, and how it's affected me having pre-workout this late, because I had my pre-workout at 6 o'clock, which is later than I normally have it as well. So yeah, that's the caffeine for today. See you tomorrow. So a little bit of a social experiment this morning. So I woke up feeling extremely tired, more so than usual to be honest, but I think that's probably down to the mental fatigue from my exams and lectures yesterday, along with the physical fatigue from the gym. But I woke up, came downstairs, set up my workspace, and was tempted to do my normal routine, which is to have a coffee, get that caffeine hit and sort of sets me up for the day. But I thought, I'm not going to do that, I'm going to sort of wait until the afternoon, or at least lunchtime, which it is now, and have my first coffee. And I definitely found that I wasn't focusing as much. I felt very lethargic, tired, and I just couldn't really sort of engage, or haven't felt like I've been able to really engage properly with my work. I'm just having my first coffee now, so I want to see whether I'm just becoming a little bit reliant on caffeine. I almost feel like I need that caffeine in the morning to set me up for the day. Now, I don't know from like a biological point of view and a neurological point of view whether that's genuinely true, whether that caffeine really does sort of actually have that effect where you suddenly do feel more awake, because I feel like it's more of an inhibitor than it is like excitatory, if that makes sense. So it'd be interesting to see, or just I think it's interesting to know whether it's really something going on neurologically, or it's just like a habit and it's habitual, and because I'm expecting to feel better after a coffee, I suddenly do feel more awake. So I think that's quite an interesting thing to look into, and I think I will be looking into sort of the real psychological effects of having lots of caffeine. Either way, placebo or no placebo, this is a damn good coffee. Alright then, back from the pub. Great result for United, 2-1 against Barcelona. Ended up having 2 pints of Diet Coke, and I've worked out that they're around about 70 milligrams per pint, so my total for today is up there with the amount of caffeine that I've had. I'm definitely being a lot more conscious about my caffeine consumption, obviously this week, since I have been calculating it all, and it's making me realise how dependent I actually am on caffeine to actually function in the day. It's quite eye-opening actually, now that I'm consciously thinking about how much caffeine I'm having and when I'm having it. So I'm going to dive into that a little bit more tomorrow, because as for now I'm shattered and I want to try and get to sleep. Hopefully the caffeine hasn't spoiled that, but yeah, I'll see you tomorrow. Friday today. I know yesterday I mentioned how I was consciously realising how much caffeine I was actually consuming, but that still hasn't stopped me getting a monster today, just because like I say, I do feel like I need a little bit of caffeine just to kind of bump me up and get me through the day a little bit, which is really not that great, I'm realising more and more. But that being said, I wanted a little bit of caffeine today just to get me over the line for the working week, but I didn't really want a coffee, and I wanted something that tasted a little bit more fruity, so I got myself a monster. I don't actually know how much caffeine is in this, so I need to look it up, but
yeah, I'm gonna hopefully not have any more caffeine today, even though I am training later, because I don't really want to have any pre-workout for my final session of the week, because I'm not really going that heavy, and I don't really feel like I can warrant having even more caffeine just for what is a light session. So yeah, I'm gonna have my monster, enjoy my monster, and then I will see you for my final training session of the week.
Okay, that is work done and haircut done. Just got back from the barber's. Just about to head off to the gym to do my final session of the week. I wasn't going to have any caffeine for this session, but I definitely feel like I need that motivation just to get me out the door, because I'm not really feeling like training tonight. So I'm going to have a scoop of Ghost, mainly because it has actually got less caffeine in than the Prolific. I think this is 125 milligrams per scoop, so I'm just gonna have one scoop of that. Obviously I have had a can of Monster today, and I did actually have a cup of coffee as well, so I actually have had quite a bit of caffeine already today. But yeah, I just feel like, say, I need it just to get myself out the door and to the gym. But yeah, not very heavy session today, just got some good mornings, which is pretty easy. And then I've got the heaviest bench that I've done this year, so I'm going to do 112.5 kilos for a single as well. So should be nice and easy, but yeah, I just need to get to the gym. Cheers.
Did you know that caffeine doesn't actually give you energy at all? It actually tricks your brain into thinking you're not tired. It does that by impersonating a compound that signals your brain to sleep. That compound is called adenosine. It builds up in the brain the longer you're awake. Adenosine bonds with its receptor on brain cells, slowing them down and making you feel tired. Caffeine and adenosine have very similar structures, which makes caffeine the perfect imposter. Here's how it works. When you drink a cup of coffee or a can of soda, the caffeine gets into your bloodstream and makes its way to your brain. That's where it meets the adenosine receptor. Since caffeine and adenosine look so similar, the receptor cells happily bind the caffeine instead of the adenosine. Basically, the caffeine is stopping adenosine from slowing things down by taking its place. So your brain cells stop getting the slow down signals from adenosine. That boosts blood pressure and heart rate and keeps you alert. Of course, what comes up must go down. The receptors eventually let go of that caffeine, and that lets the adenosine back in. After about 6 hours, you're only going to feel half of caffeine's effects, and you're going to start to drag. So the next morning when you wake up, you're probably already feeling the early symptoms of withdrawal. That's why, in a desperate attempt to get things back on track, you reach for that cup of coffee.
Well, that explains quite a lot. So that is pretty much as I mentioned, isn't it? The fact that every morning I am craving more caffeine to sort of get me back up to that level again of feeling awake, or at least not feeling tired, because obviously, as that demonstrated or that showed, caffeine isn't actually excitatory. It doesn't actually give you energy. It is just an inhibitor. So it sort of pretends to be adenosine and then attaches to the receptors. I mean, you would have just seen that video, and that just demonstrates exactly what caffeine does. And it is a little bit worrying because of the amount of caffeine that maybe I do consume, that really is having an effect on my sleep and therefore my recovery. So it has really got me thinking this week that I really do need to cut down my consumption of caffeine.
In addition, it does something really cool, which is that it increases the sensitivity of the dopamine receptors. Now, we haven't talked too much about dopamine, but dopamine is perhaps the most powerful neuromodulator. It's involved in movement. That's why people who have Parkinson's are deficient in dopamine neurons, and they have trouble generating smooth movements. So they shake, they have trouble. In severe cases, they can't speak, they feel depressed because dopamine is not, we hear about dopamine hits. It's in other areas of the brain and body such that it controls motivation, craving, and drive. And dopamine makes us feel good, but it really makes us feel motivated. People who are deficient in dopamine have trouble with focus, they have trouble with motivation, and they are no disrespect, but they are the people that can sit around thinking about the things they need to do forever. They are chronic procrastinators, and they have very, very high what we call activation energy, and they're just not very motivated. Dopamine can be enhanced by taking various things and doing certain things we could talk about, but caffeine increases the sensitivity of dopamine receptors, increasing not just the tendency to move by release of adrenaline, but makes us more motivated to go out and pursue goals. In fact, the major effect of dopamine is to place us into a mode of what we call exteroception, of focusing on things that are outside our immediate experience or the confines of our skin. So caffeine increases dopamine receptor function by increasing, dopamine function by increasing dopamine receptors.
That also is really fascinating, especially given what I was saying the other day about my motivation with work first thing in the morning. But once I have my caffeine or my coffee, suddenly I have more energy, and I have more focus and more motivation to just get on with work and do things and just generally feel more motivated. And it's the same for before I go to the gym. I have pre-workout. Obviously I had pre-workout before I went to the gym today, and suddenly I feel a little bit more motivated to go to the gym. And that is fascinating what Andrew Huberman, I think that's his name, said there about the dopamine response, how it sort of upregulates dopamine, or at least makes you more sensitive to dopamine, which obviously is that sort of happy neurotransmitter. Yeah, that is really interesting, but I can then see how people can get mildly addicted to caffeine and that feeling of caffeine, and when you become too adapted to it, then you have to keep increasing it, and that's when I think it can realm in the area of maybe being slightly unhealthy. So I think I can probably get a pretty good average just over the 5 days that I have been calculating my caffeine consumption, and the average over the last 5 days has been 365 milligrams. And I've just been looking online on Google what the recommended or average consumption of caffeine is for the average person, and Harvard University say it is 400 milligrams. So surprisingly, I am actually below the average. So that is fairly surprising, because since I have been tracking, I've been convinced that I've been having too much and more than the recommended or more than the average person, but clearly I haven't by 35 milligrams. So that is interesting and has slightly changed my perspective on actually how much caffeine I have been consuming, because I have been worrying a little bit about it and thinking, am I having too much and is this really bad for me? But since I've actually been really looking into it this evening, just with how much people have and how much is safe, the sort of safe levels, and also watching Andrew Huberman's little thing here, this video, which I will put a link down below, caffeine really isn't as bad for you as people make out. It is obviously in high quantities, that's the same with anything, but actually if you do stick to that sort of average amount, caffeine can actually be very beneficial. But he does mention that you can become adapted to it, and therefore it doesn't work in the same way every time if you sort of get used to that. So that's obviously something that I can consider and think about, and maybe go a couple of days off of caffeine just to allow my body to sort of reset itself, and then maybe have someone have the real full effects of it when I know that I really need it. And this is stuff that I kind of knew about. I knew that you can get used to, your body can get used to having caffeine, and therefore you don't become as sensitive to it. But I'm just becoming a bit more aware of it really, and looking more into it, because caffeine is something that I have nearly every single day, and especially on days that I am training, and it's something that I don't really ever consciously think about. So I think it is important sometimes when you are consuming stuff, and especially consuming products just like pre-workouts, it is important to look at the stuff that you're actually putting into your body and how it really is affecting you, because caffeine does impact your body and your brain in a fairly significant way. It doesn't seem to be that dangerous from obviously what I'm reading here and listening to, but there can be things that you are potentially putting into your body, especially with these pre-workouts, which taken in excess can be dangerous. So if I can sort of send any message over in this video, it's just to be a bit more aware of what you're actually putting in your body. This video wasn't meant to be sort of preachy or have a sort of ending message, but I kind of feel after the 5 days that I have been tracking, that is something that I've been very aware of. So yeah, I would just say be wary of what you're taking. Look at the recommended doses of things, because yeah, if you're reckless with these things, it can be dangerous. So yeah, like I said, I didn't want this video to be preachy at all, but that's kind of just the natural conclusion that I've got from recording and tracking all the caffeine that I've had over the last 5 days, that maybe sometimes we need to be a little bit more conscious about what we're consuming, because at the end of the day, the body is a massively complicated thing, and that's something that I'm learning with my physiotherapy degree in particular, but especially my neuro module that I'm doing at the moment, which just shows how delicate the body is, the brain is, and how sensitive it can be to everything that you basically put into your body. And your body is constantly trying to maintain that homeostatic state of keeping you alive. So sometimes if you're overindulging in certain things, that can really stress the body to maintain that homeostasis. So that, I think, is quite a nice way to conclude the video. I'm not going to be doing the next couple of days of tracking my caffeine, because I think I've kind of got what I want to get out of this video. But yeah, the takeaway that I am taking away from it is I'm going to be a little bit more conscious about what I'm going to be consuming in the future. So I do realise this video is already over 20 minutes long, and I did do quite a bit of research actually looking into caffeine, some of which was actually quite boring. But if you are interested in looking into the research behind caffeine and some of the resources that I looked through as well, I'm going to put all of those in the description box down below, so you can have a read through those if you really feel like it. But as for now, I'm going to sign out the video, because like I say, it's quite a long one. So I hope you've enjoyed it for what it is, a bit of a different video. Hopefully a little bit educational in some places, but yeah, if you have enjoyed it, please leave it a like, subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care, peace.